Are you planning a trip to Greece in 2024? Here are some things that you need to know before you book your ticket to Greece. One of the biggest things, in my opinion, is that Orthodox Easter is much later this year. Usually, Orthodox Easter is like sometime in late March, early April, but this year it is May 5th, which is incredibly late for any year. What does this mean for you? You may be thinking, I'm not coming around Orthodox Easter. I'm coming earlier, or I'm coming in May. Why does that matter to me? One thing is that usually hotels in Greece that are seasonal will open around Orthodox Easter so that they can accommodate people coming for the holiday. The other thing that it is going to affect is ferry schedules and ferry tickets. That is because usually that by the end of March or early April, they have announced all of the ferry schedules for April, May, and June. July and August are already out because they know that it's like the tourists are coming then. But they don't really count on those shoulder season people coming. And so the ferry schedule may be completely released later. Now, you may go on and you may see ferries. So the ferry schedule is out for some places, but not all, and there still may be some added. So if you're coming in March, in April, and in May, because even though Orthodox Easter is in May, it may be that they're not out fully yet. So if you're coming, you need to be flexible. And if you're looking and you've never been to Greece before, you may say, but I don't see a ferry from X to Y. What I suggest that you do is that you go on to ferryhopper.com and you can go and look at the map of ferries from where to where you can possibly go. Then what I suggest that you do is you go to Open Seas and they show the schedules for the last year. And sometimes I think they even do the year before. So what you can do is go in and put last year's dates that you would be coming and see if there is a ferry on those days. Now, you may need to look at actual day of the week. So you may need to look at Friday to Friday rather than like, say, May 5th to May 7th. So just, play around with it a little bit and see what you might be able to figure out, because then you're gonna know like, hey, yes, the ferry goes from Naxos to Milos, but hey, it only goes on Saturdays at like 9 o'clock in the morning. That may not be accurate. That's just an example. Let's talk about some of the other dates in 2024 that you need to be aware of. Along the lines of Easter is March 18th. That is the beginning of Orthodox Lent this year, and that is called Clean Monday here, and that is usually a holiday. Now, archaeological sites will be open and restaurants will be open, but things like shops, the supermarket, things like that, it may not be open. So which, usually on a Monday things are open. So it may be a little unsettling if you come and you're like, I can't go to the supermarket today and I really needed to. So just have that in the back of your mind if you're coming in March. The other March date that you need to be aware of is March 25th. March 25th is Greece's National Day, or what we would in America call Independence Day. So everything will be closed then. Shops and supermarkets will not be open, and almost everywhere in Greece will have a parade of some kind, whether it's school children marching or if it's a military parade. Another March date, lots of stuff happening in March, is Greece starts daylight savings time on March 31st. The next date that you want to be aware of here in Greece is May 1st. May 1st is Labor Day. And here that traditionally means that there will be a transportation strike. It's usually the ferries, the metro, and the buses, and the tram here in Athens. Sometimes it includes the taxis. So my recommendation is, if you haven't booked your tickets yet for anything, whether it's a plane or a ferry, do not book them for May 1st. And this isn't just in 2024, this is every year. Because Easter falls on May 5th, there's a possibility that the government may announce that May 1st will be observed on May 7th. If that is the case, the strikes may happen on May 7th instead of May 1st, as they traditionally do. That has not been announced yet, but you definitely want to keep your eye out on that if that's when you're coming. The one last day of the year that I think is important to be aware of is October 28th, which is Ohi Day here in Greece, and that is also a national holiday. That is a big day. There are lots of parades that day as well. A new tax has been sort of implemented starting in 2024, and it's going to vary depending on what time of the year that you're coming. So there's always been a bed tax at a hotel or Airbnb, and it was usually pretty inexpensive. It was like 50 cents to €4, depending on what kind of accommodation you had booked. That is now increasing, but it is only from March to the end of October. So if you're coming then, the tax is now going to be anywhere from €1.50 all the way up to €10. The €10 will apply if you're staying in a 5-star hotel or certain Airbnbs. So don't think that if you're going to come and stay in an Airbnb, you're going to miss out on this tax. The tax still applies. And while for a lot of people, the tax increase isn't huge, because if you're only staying in a place that's $1.50 and it was 50 cents before, then, that's not really that big of a jump. You might be paying €10 more for your trip. But if you're staying in a luxury hotel and you are staying in a 5-star hotel and it's €10 a night and you're staying for a week, that's €70. Now, I'm assuming that if you're staying in a 5-star hotel, 70 more euros isn't going to break the bank, but maybe not. Maybe this is a splurge for you this year. The tax is now called something different as well. So if you get it and you're looking at your bill wondering what it is, I believe it's going to be called an environmental tax. And this money is supposed to be earmarked for helping prevent environmental disasters that we frequently experience here in Greece, such as wildfires and the flooding. What I have noticed as well is that some airlines have started their direct flights a little bit early from the US. So I think that Delta is starting their direct flights from JFK at the end of March, and I believe the same is true for American Airlines. So if you haven't booked your flight yet and you're saying, well, maybe I'll come a little bit earlier this year, you might be able to fly direct if you're willing to either fly from JFK or for one of the other airports close to you. I don't personally live near any of these airports, so I never get to do these direct flights. My predictions for 2024 travel in Greece are that it's only going to get busier and it's only going to get more expensive. After we opened in 2022, it got very busy, and then in 2023, it became even crazier. And I think that trend is going to continue. I don't know if all of the places that were popular then are going to be popular now, but this is kind of what I'm seeing already, is that my YouTube channel and my travel blog are experiencing traffic earlier than they had in the years past. Traditionally, before COVID, people started looking at booking travel right after the Christmas holidays. So in January, but that really changed obviously during COVID. And then people were a little bit wary about booking travel. They were unsure if things were going to close. Now we know that that's probably not going to happen anymore, at least in the near future. So people are looking earlier. People are already starting to book things for 2024. So what does that mean for you? Well, if it means you haven't booked your airline ticket yet, you might want to consider doing that, because depending on when you're coming, you need to book, 3 to 6 months in advance for your airfare, more closer to 6 months in my opinion. As far as your hotel, same thing applies. Once you've booked that flight and you know where you're going, look at booking a hotel, because I think as the hotels start to see that people are coming, they're going to start raising their prices. And the closer we get to that May 5th date, that's going to happen. And once we hit May 15th, which is the traditional opening, to the Greece travel season, then it's going to uptick from there. So if you're coming in July and August especially, you really need to be booking your hotels probably in the next month or two, because it's going to start to book up, particularly if you're going to the really popular places. That actually leads me to my next sort of prediction, and I'm kind of started to see this last year, is that some people are choosing not to go to the more popular islands. So meaning Mykonos and Santorini. And that is for a couple of reasons. One is they are incredibly crowded in July and August, and now Santorini is even, and probably Mykonos too, crowded in September. I mean, I came to Greece in 2016 and Santorini was crowded in September. So, but I see people saying, I don't really want to experience that crowd that I was experiencing before, or I've not been here before, but I really don't like crowds and I'm not going to do that. So they're going to pick less popular islands. So if you're wanting to do those islands, then maybe this is the year to do them during the high season. Don't quote me on that. It could be totally wrong. But islands that were not as popular are going to be more popular probably this year. And I started seeing this in the last 2 years as well, because people knew that Santorini and Mykonos were crowded. The other thing is, because they're crowded, their prices have gotten crazy. If you were planning on coming and not going to those places, but you wanted to go to Paros or Naxos, those places are starting to see a big swell in people coming because they don't want to go to Santorini and Mykonos. And has the same feel in terms of like the blue and white houses and the villages that Santorini and Mykonos have. The other island, same thing, that's also close to Naxos is Paros. Paros has that feel. It also has a little bit more upscale feel, and it is getting very, very popular. It also has a little bit more of a club scene than Naxos. So some people are like, well, forget Mykonos, I'll go to Paros instead. But they're getting more and more popular. One of these islands that I predict that is going to become very popular in 2024 is Sifnos. There are a few other islands that I think are going to become more popular. One of them being because Condé Nast made a list of the best Greek islands to visit in 2024, and these are on them. And that is Sifnos and Milos. I have been to Sifnos twice in the past 12 months, so that should tell you something. I also am seeing Sifnos all over my Instagram feed, and not just because I follow a lot of Sifnos accounts. They're just very popular right now. Milos was already starting to see this uptick in it being popular, so just keep that in mind. Now, the one thing that I do hope that for these two islands is that they don't become so over tourist like Santorini and Mykonos, and like Naxos and Paros are slightly becoming. I do hope that they get better served by the ferry schedule. The ferry schedule to both islands is not the greatest, and it can be difficult to get to those islands from other islands. So maybe those things will keep them from being super inundated with tourists, but you should definitely go take a look at that list, because that's going to tell you what is going to be popular. So my last prediction, as I sort of briefly mentioned, is that everything is going to be more expensive, and I don't see this going away anytime soon. Greece is relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of other European countries, and obviously we have great beaches. So in the summer, everyone's going to come here. But the cost of living for Greeks is going up. So hotel owners and restaurant owners are starting to pass that cost on to people because they just can't take the burden anymore. And they've come to realize that people are willing to pay those prices, so they're going to charge more. So the earlier that you can book, particularly for July and August, and I would say even September now, is good. My recommendations for coming to Greece in 2024 is to make sure you look at the dates of all the holidays, like we've discussed. Make sure that you book early so that you get good prices for your hotels. Ferry prices usually don't change those, so sign up for those local airline newsletters so that you can make sure you get any offers for discounts on flights within Greece. And then maybe pick islands that aren't as popular, because they are not going to charge as much. Besides picking islands that are going to be less popular, my other recommendation to you is that you pick something that's not an island. You either come to the mainland or you go to the Peloponnese. If you go to the Peloponnese, you can still go to the sea because it has a huge coastline, And actually getting to the Peloponnese is not difficult. I think a lot of people look at it and go, how do I do that? A lot of European countries, you can fly directly to Kalamata. So if you're either flying into Europe, you could try to then fly to Kalamata, or if you're in a European country already, or if you're from the UK, you can fly directly to Kalamata, or fly to Thessaloniki because it also has a great coastline. So there are other options besides islands, and that's going to do a lot for you. It's going to give you more flexibility in when you come, where you stay, and the prices, because it is going to be cheaper there than the islands in the summer. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and that if you're not, you will consider subscribing either for my travel tips or my upcoming travels. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.